The 165th edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
Carolina basketball family is the strongest there's ever been. There ever will be.
Nate Humphrey hands King Rice the ball. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Good. Off the glass. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma. Been ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores.
With 20 seconds left to play, goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good! 63, 62, 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Brent Brown looking. Throw away to Worthy. 35. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul.
Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out the head. Long outside shot. Short rebound. It's over. And how about the Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
The Tar Heels are the national daggum champions.
And that's what it takes when you big time games. You got to compete. You do it with your brain, and you got to do it with your heart too. And that's pretty doggone good.
From QCBroadcasting.com, this is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Josh Marlowe. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Josh and Mark with you here tonight as we are recapping the Syracuse game, which just concluded about 30 minutes or so ago. An 81-75 win for Carolina as they improved to 8-4 overall, 3-2 in the ACC. We slid Mark in for tonight's episode because he hasn't been on in a while. He's filling in for Anthony. And first off, Mark, haven't talked to you in a while, so how's life going? It's been since Christmas and New Year's. So how are you doing as we've entered 2021?
Good. Excited for a new year. Obviously, everybody's excited to put 2020 behind us and start a new, more positive venture in 2021, and hopefully that includes good North Carolina basketball.
Yeah, and they've started off the new year with some big wins, important wins. They got the win over Notre Dame at home, the win over Miami or in Miami, and then of course tonight's win over Syracuse. And I'll let you speak on the ACC play here in a little bit. We'll focus on the Syracuse game. As I mentioned, Carolina won 81-75, and there's a lot to really take away from this game. Carolina broke the 80-point threshold for just the second time this season. This is the first time they've done it in a win. They scored 40 or more in both halves for the first time this season, so the offense somewhat coming together, it appears. They had a week layoff because of a COVID issue, postponing their Clemson game over the weekend, so they had a chance to really work on some things in practice, and you can start to see this team putting it together on the offensive end of the court, even though they only shot 40% from the field and an even worse 21% from behind the three-point line, but they limited the turnovers with just 11 miscues tonight. That's a really healthy number for Carolina. The biggest thing you take away from this game, 24 offensive rebounds, which led to 24 second chance points. That's been Carolina's best offense all year long, and it's a big reason why they beat the Syracuse Orange tonight in the Smith Center.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a great win. Anytime, I know when we did the season preview, we talked a lot about stacking wins in the early part of the ACC season. We did not quite get off to the start that we wanted, obviously dropping the game to NC State, dropping the tough loss to Georgia Tech. And now they've bounced back a little bit, so that's encouraging to see that. Tonight there were a lot of encouraging things, and the thing that resonated the most with me throughout the entire game was, against Notre Dame and Miami, North Carolina didn't necessarily play their best basketball, but they still found a way to get a win. Tonight it felt like we played considerably better. He had some veterans step up, specifically Garrison Brooks. It's great to see him bounce back, especially when he got the opportunity to start. I think he had a double-double with 16 points, 10 boards.
Yep.
Baycott was great. It seems like you mentioned it. We struggled from the outside, but it seems like when we needed a big shot, they kind of came around. R.J. Davis had one or two of them. Kerwin Walton hit the one with the Shot clock winding down. Playtech had one. It was, it wasn't efficient, but it was timely, which is also good. So I think a lot of encouraging things to take away, and maybe one of the bigger things also is that, part of the maturation process is not only learning to play together, but learning how to win together, learning how to close out a game. It wasn't long ago last year when we all remember that we were kind of on the opposite side of games like this. So it's good to be on the positive side of these and get some momentum heading into Florida State, which is now a big game, and then hopefully continue to stack wins from there.
You mentioned Carolina learning how to win, and I've been pressing that really the last two games when they beat Notre Dame and they beat Miami, was that it wasn't pretty, but they made the plays that they had to make to give themselves a chance to win the game, which they ultimately did go on to get a W. And, look, you've got seniors in Garrison Brooks and Andrew Playtech and a veteran in Leaky Black, but really the only guy who knows how to win at this level was Garrison Brooks, because he's been a starter since he got to Carolina, was a big part of that team defensively when they made the Sweet 16 with Kobe White, Cam Johnson, and those guys. So this is a relatively young team that's learning how to win together, and you're starting a lot of freshmen. You got a lot of freshmen playing some big minutes, and so this is paying dividends for Carolina right now. But this will be experiences when they're sophomores and they're juniors, and if you think that they're going to develop into the guys that they're going to be, and Carolina's back to where they usually are, towards a legitimate threat to win the national championship, we'll look back at this season and these games and be like, well, this is how they learned how to win. And so I think that's something that we've just kind of been monitoring, is that, look, they're not playing great, but they're winning. And for this team, that's what matters, because they're not a national title team. They're not an ACC regular season title team. So it's not about how you win. It's just about winning for this team, and they're doing that right now. Garrison Brooks moved into the starting lineup tonight. A big reason because he, was give Carolina a way to attack the zone. Easily his best game of the season, 16 points, 10 rebounds, 5 of 12 from the field, but 6 of 6 from the foul line, a big boost. Armando Bacot has been this team's probably most consistent player, 15 points, 12 rebounds, while Day'Ron Sharp gave you 8 points and 4 rebounds off the bench. That trio of big men is what's carried Carolina throughout the season, and they showed up again tonight. And as it usually does against the zone team, usually you're supposed to beat up a team that plays a zone defense on the boards. Carolina did that. But they also got some big contributions in the backcourt. Kerwin Walton gave you 9 points on 4 of 9 shooting. But you got to watch R.J. Davis, 12 points, 3 of 8 from the field, 2 of 6 from 3. He needs to work on his shot selection, but 4 of 4 from the foul line. And Roy Williams has started splitting Caleb Love and him up where they don't play together. It's usually one or the other. And in this game, Carolina looked better with R.J. Davis on the floor, as Caleb Love's continuing to struggle to adapt to the college game. But, you're talking about the maturation process. I think we're seeing the guards grow up. It's just not as fast as we want it to be.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. The bigs, obviously carry us, and I think they will continue to carry us. We just need to get some improved perimeter play, whether it's, somebody taking control at the point guard position. And, yeah, like you said, Roy Williams now playing the two of them separate. Certainly tonight was way more R.J. Davis's night than it was Caleb Love's. I thought Love got off to a good start. He hit the 3, and then I think he hit another jump shot. Then he had to rush a 3-point attempt on the right wing with the shot clock winding down, and from there it just seemed like the game sped up on him a little bit, and he kind of lost control a little bit. So, specifically down the stretch, he kind of took a weak floater in the lane. I think Carolina was up 1 with about 2.5 to go, and then he took a fadeaway jumper on the right side also. So, shot selection is definitely part of the maturation process, specifically for R.J. Davis and Caleb Love. Hopefully they continue to get better. Kerwin Walton, hopefully, you can count on him for 6 to 8 points and potentially to get you a dozen or 15 based on how many 3-point attempts he gets. But it's nice to get some contribution from him on the wing. Leaky Black, I think he kind of had a sneaky good game tonight. I think he had 5, 7, and 7. The other thing to probably notate, a huge part in the Carolina win is him shutting down Buddy Boeheim in the second half. If I remember right, I don't think he even scored, and he had 20 going into half, and he's kind of lighting us up pretty good. So that was a big switch momentum-wise, and obviously I'm also excited to get Anthony Harris back if and when that happens. Appears it could be in the near future, but I think he obviously brings a great deal of energy, some much needed defense also, and he can, be a little bit of a spark plug on the offensive end.
Yeah, I was going to mention Carolina's job defensively in the second half, particularly on Buddy Boeheim, as they were able to hold him scoreless after he got kind of hot to finish the first half. Carolina's defense, statistically not great, as they allowed Syracuse to shoot 47% from the field overall, but only 34% from three, as the Orange were 10 of 29 from behind the three-point line. Guerrier, he looked like the dude we thought he was. 23 points, 9 of 8 shooting. Really good job by Carolina, though, in the final minutes, fouling him out of the game. That's a winning play from a very inexperienced team. That's a veteran move from a team that if Carolina wouldn't have fouled him out, you wouldn't have blamed him, because maybe they didn't know he had 4 fouls, something like that. But they were able to get him out of the game, and that really affected the way Syracuse was able to close the game. And I think that's the thing. We look at Carolina. Defensively, efficiency-wise, they entered this game 12th in the country, according to KenPom. That's not always great for 40 minutes, but in crunch time, their defense is way better than it usually is in those situations. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is. I think it's got to be the fact that you've got legitimate rim protectors, which is why Carolina's maybe gotten beaten on the perimeter with more aggressive dribble drive, maybe some backdoor cuts. But before, the last couple of years, they've missed a rim protector. They've now added that with Baycott, with Brooks, and Sharp. And it's just something that for Carolina, usually they're going to win games on the offensive end of the floor. But for this team, they've got to win games defensively, and they're doing that in this 3-game win streak.
Yeah, absolutely. And another very encouraging thing is, talking about game-winning plays, both Brooks and Baycott made some, and Sharp also, all 3 bigs made some huge free throws down the stretch. There was a time where they'd go to the line and there wasn't a lot of confidence that they'd make them, but the last 2-3 games, all 3 of them have been doing a really good job at the line. And, all together, collectively as a team, I feel that they've found a way to make the winning plays, whether it's get the stop against Notre Dame, hit the free throws, and get Guerrier out of the game tonight. They've found a way to battle, stay with it, and figure out a way to get it done. And, that's got to continue, and hopefully Brooks's performance tonight will only propel him with some confidence, and hopefully we can count on even half of that Garrison Brooks moving forward.
Yeah, I think, Jordan Cornette brought up in the broadcast that maybe this is the game that gets him going. I kind of mentioned that when me and Anthony previewed the game, that this is a good matchup for him. And, if Carolina is going to ascend into the top half of the ACC, and if they're going to be a legitimate team both in the conference and nationally, he's got to play better, and maybe this is a start of him doing so. And, you mentioned the free throw shooting. That's big for Carolina. 18 of 23 tonight from the charity stripe. That's 78%. If this team shoots north of 70%, I think we're going to live with that, because they've been proven to not be a very consistent foul shooting team. They've gotten a lot better here in the last couple games, though. And so I think that's the thing that, I'm looking at, and I think most Hard fans are looking at, is that you're seeing progression, you're seeing bits and pieces. And at some point, you just imagine that it's all going to come together. And it's going to need to be, because once you get to February and you get to the back half of that ACC schedule, really when you start with that first game against Duke, from then on, it's going to be an onslaught. It's going to be, it's going to be tough to find wins. That's why we mentioned you had to stack wins where when you can. Carolina should be really 0-4, should have been 0-4 in ACC play coming into tonight, but they got themselves to 2-2. Now they're 3-2. You look at the standings. 3-2, you're right in the thick of things as the schedule is going to heat up and your games are going to run together. So any final thoughts from you on the win over Syracuse before we just talk about Carolina's overall play and ACC play for tonight?
I think the other thing that I would highlight is definitely the high-low post play. That was a thing of beauty, honestly. Garrison Brooks, as we mentioned, getting the start, but kind of planning himself all night right at the elbow. And when he got it, he knew when to make the offensive play. He knew when to go to the hoop. He hit a few jumpers there. He knew when to find the open guy on the wing and hit a few guys for some threes. I just thought him and Baycott especially, I know Sharp was in there also, but that high-low play, that was huge. And, a lot of times when you say, you play Syracuse, you got to be hot from 3, you got to hit some shots. And that typically is true when they bring that 2-3 zone. But when you break it down as far as Carolina did, that opens up other things. And so I think that was, a huge factor as far